We back. Goku and DC season 4, episode 11, man. In this episode, Goku meets back up with old Beast Boy. Alright, but he gonna be a little different than this. Let me show y'all my thumbnail I had before I decide to go with this, man. I thought this was cool, but then I got to looking at it. I'm like, damn, bro, why Goku looking at homie like that, man? Well, let me know in the comment section what you think Goku's thinking right here, because I got a lot of different things I could put. I might put some of my jokes in the comments too. Anyway, shout out to the members, man. Jason57835, John Lane 2016, OD Demon Wolf 34, and Quade Moat, man. Shout out to the members, man. Join the member, man. Stop playing. It helps the channel, helps me make better content for the people. Quality just keep going up. Shout out to the subscribers. Let's get into it. The sonic boom from Goku's retreat from the plateau was still echoing across the bleeding skies as he rocketed upward, putting miles between himself and the cosmic malignancy that was below. The searing, impotent memory of his Booyah Blast dissolving against Trigon's form was a brand on his own mind. This wasn't a fight. It seemed to be a foreclosure for their world. Leveling out high in the stratosphere where the air was thin and the hellish red glow stained the very edges of space, it seemed, Goku skidded to a halt. He fumbled for the Justice League communicator that was on his wrist, his fingers uncharacteristically clumsy with adrenaline and a cold, sinking dread. He didn't open a private channel. He slammed his thumb onto the highest priority, all-frequency emergency beacon, the one that would scream across every watchtower console, everyone's communicator, and even the encrypted lines that Bruce insisted that they all carry. The device chimed, a soft, stupidly normal sound against the apocalypse that was around him. A holographic array of familiar ID tags flickered to life. Everyone listen up. Goku's voice was a raw, stained bark, devoid of its usual easygoing tone. He didn't wait for acknowledgments. It's Raven. She's in trouble. Bad trouble. Something called Trigon is using her. Her pain, her power, it's like a key to a doorway. He's using her to tear a hole in our world right now, and he's stepping through. He took a shuddering breath. The image of her suspended, cracking from form burning behind his eyes. I just hit him with everything I had. Full power. It didn't do anything. It did less than anything. He's not just strong. He's not just some strong opponent. He's an ender, a world ender, and I think he's here to consume everything that we have. Goku's gaze swept across the virtual faces of his friends, his family, his allies. I think he's bringing back the dead. I feel it. I feel like the presence of old enemies, but twisted into something worse. This is it. The big one. If we don't group up and figure this out now, there won't be a later to save. So go to the watchtower or go to the hall. I don't care where. Just move. Raven's fighting in there, but she's losing. And we're all she's got. He killed the transmission, the silence that followed louder than any explosion. Below him, the red stain continued to spread. He had sounded the alarm. Now he had to make sure that Diana and his unborn children were okay. The air over Themyscira, usually cleansed by sea winds, tasted of ozone and ash. Goku touched down in a rush of displaced air. His eyes instantly finding Diana where she stood on a balcony, her hand pressed against the swell of her stomach, her gaze locked on the bleeding horizon above. Diana, he called, crossing the distance in a blink. His hands came up, hovering near her shoulders as if to check for an injury without touching. Are you okay? The energy out there, it's everywhere. Does it hurt you? Them? His eyes dropped to her abdomen, wide with a fear far more personal than what he'd felt facing Trigon. Diana turned to him, her face a mask of regal strain. I am unharmed, physically, she said, but her voice was tight. But I can feel it, Goku. A coldness, a wrongness seeping into everything. It does not attack the body, but it leeches at the spirit, at the very essence of life. Her hand rubbed a slow circle. They are restless. It is as if they sense the shadow. I do not know if this energy can harm them directly, but the stress, the terror of the world, it is not an environment for up-and-coming new life. Frustration etched her features, and a rare crack was in her composure. And I am trapped here, My sisters are preparing for war, but my duty now, she looked down at herself. It chains me to this island. I should be with you, with the League. My place is in the fight to defend our home. Goku shook his head fiercely, his concern overriding everything else. No, 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 your place is right here, keeping them safe. He looked around at the beautiful fortified island, but his senses screamed that it wasn't going to be enough. Themyscira was powerful, but it was still on the on the surface, and Earth was being swallowed. But this isn't safe enough anymore. Not from this. He jerked his chin towards the crimson sky. We need somewhere away from here. Somewhere that things, bad vibes, they can't reach. He snapped his fingers, a spark of desperate inspiration in his eyes. Kami's lookout. It's not on the surface. It's not on Earth, really. It's like in a sphere in the sky with an ancient barrier around it. It's high above everything. Mr. Popo and Kami can protect it. That negative energy won't get through it as easy. It's the safest place in the world right now. He took her hands, his grip firm. Please, Diana, for them. Let me take you there. Diana searched his face, seeing the terror of his family warring with his resolve to face the cosmic threat. Her warrior's heart rebelled, but the mother's heart, the one that had grown alongside these two lights that were now within her, conceded. The safety of her children was a battle she could not afford to lose. She placed her other hand over his and gave a single, registered nod. Take us to the lookout. But promise me, Goku. Promise you will end this, so we can all come home. I promise, he vowed, the words heavy as stone. He gathered her carefully into his arms, his aura enveloping them in a gentle protective field. And with one last look at the besieged world below, he shot upward, carrying his most precious cargo away from what seemed to be the dying Earth, toward a sanctuary that was in the sky, his heart already turning back to the hellscape and the friends that he had to save. The power that flowed from Trigon was not merely an energy source. It seemed to be a corrupting will within itself, a command that twisted reality to its whims. For Piccolo, this was a revelation. His own ability to spawn warrior drones, the offspring of his own malice, had always been a biological function, but a slower act of creation that often tired him out. Now, under Trigon's cosmic influence, it became something far faster and more terrifying. Standing amidst the hell-scorched earth, Piccolo began to vomit out Namekian hellspawns. Gelatinous orbs of black and crimson mucus began to drop. They hit the blighted ground, not with a splash, but with a hungry hiss, absorbing the ambient negative energy that was around them. This was no longer the exhausting laying of Namekian eggs. This was a spontaneous and malignant generation. The orbs pulsed, expanding like grotesque bubbles. Within seconds they ruptured, not with the slow cracking of a shell, but in a violent unfurling of limbs and shrieks. Creatures emerged, but they were not the uniform spawns of old. These were variegated horrors, some hulking and muscular, covered in chitinous-looking plates that gleamed with bloody light. Others were slender and swift, with bladed forearms and eyes like smoldering coals. Their forms seemed to be unstable, dripping with amniotic fluid that burned the ground, reflecting the chaotic evolving will of their own master in the dimension that he now was representing. And they grew, not over days or hours, but in minutes, feeding directly on the Trigon energy. Their muscles swelled, their talons lengthened, their shrieks deepened into roars. A spawn born next to Piccolo's shoulder hit the ground, and it was the size of a dog. It stumbled once, and by its third step, it stood as tall as a man, its carapace hardening with audible cracks. Piccolo watched a general surveying his instant army. He pointed a clawed finger east and then west. No words were needed. A psychic filament of Trigon's command relayed through him, snapped into each spawn's nascent mind with coordinated snarls that were disturbingly intelligent, and then the horde split into different directions. One wave lurched toward the distant glimmer of a coastal city, moving with a frightening, scuttling speed. Another turned inland toward the psychic terror of populated mountains. Their purpose was to terrorize, to break the spirit of the world, and to feast on the fear and pain they created. And with Piccolo as the hellish midwife of the horror. The pristine, timeless air of Kami's lookout was a stark, almost shocking contrast to the poison atmosphere of the world below and around. Goku stood on a floating palace, watching all the chaos through Kami's seeing pool. Below him, the world was a tapestry of agony. He could feel it, not just see it. It was like a psychic poison seeping into every living thing, but sharper than the ambient misery where the violent, familiar flares of conflict igniting like struck matches across the globe. In a scorched desert, a bestial, hateful roar shook the continent. It was Saiyan-like, but warped, gorged on something foul and endless. It had to be Nappa. The sheer brute violence of the energy signature was unmistakable. Yet it felt sticky and wrong, like tar burning itself. From the ruins of a forgotten city, a different kind of evil, cold and precise and utterly silent, void of emotion, wrapped around a core of lethal calculating purpose, who moved with the predator's patience, hunting, slayed, Deathstroke back from atomic dispersal, now operating on a frequency of pure infernal logic. And from the epicenter of the spreading crimson stain, a more complex signature bloomed, ancient, intelligent, and malignant, conducting a symphony of creation and horror and terror. Piccolo. King Piccolo. But this wasn't the focused, honed energy of his rival. This was a deep, churning well of demonic-like power, spawning smaller, hungrier horrors that scatter like locusts, their tiny, savage minds fixated on distant pockets of human fear. Mr. Popo's soft footsteps approached from behind, his usual placid demeanor hardened by necessity. The princess is settled. The lookout's ancient wards are holding. The negative energy, it brushes against the barrier, but cannot take root here. Not yet. She and the children will be safe for now. Goku didn't turn. He gave a short, grateful nod, his eyes still closed in concentration. Safe? Diana and the twins were safe. That was the first weight lifted. But the other weights, the roaring, the silence, the spreading plague of fear, pulled at him, demanding immediate action. Kami materialized right beside him, his expression grave. The balance has been shattered, I'm afraid, Goku. This entity, Trigon, he is not of any circle that I tend. He seems to be a consumer of realms, though, based on this shift. Your power, great as it is, cannot purge a sickness of this magnitude. Not alone. I know, Goku said, his voice low. The memory of his energy dissolving against Trigon was a cold stone within his own gut. I hit him with everything I had, Kami. It was like I was throwing a glass of water into the sun. He finally opened his eyes, staring with a fierce focus. Brute force isn't the answer this time, but I'll figure something out. He pushed off from the railing, turning to face the Eternal Guardian. Kami, I need you and Popo to hold this line. Protect this place with everything you've got. No matter what happens down there, this has to stand. It will, Kami assured him, his staff glowing with a soft, reassuring light. But where will you go? This battle seems to be everywhere. Goku's gaze was already fixed on the horizon, toward a specific familiar frequency. A determined, almost grim smile touched his lips. I'm going to go have a chat with an old friend. Because right now, we need all the help we can get. And without another word, he crouched and launched himself from the lookout. But this wasn't a frantic, explosive leap. It was a controlled, powerful descent. A blue comet cutting through the high atmosphere with purposeful velocity. He wasn't streaking toward a brawl or a blast. He was on a recruit mission. A city trembled under a haul of indiscriminate destruction. Nappa, a mountain of resurrected malice, floated above its center, his laughter a grating avalanche of sound. With casual flicks of his wrist, he launched searing orbs of crimson-tinged ki. A bank tower vaporized into shimmering dust. A hospital east wing disappeared in a flash. The screams within were cut short. He was enjoying himself like a child with a magnifying glass, focusing on an anthill. Each explosion was a petty, satisfying pop. Ha! This mudball's architecture is even flimsier than I remember, he roared, charging another blast aimed at a crowded transit hub. Let's see how high the little bugs can fly. His finger began to tighten. The sky above him answered first, not with a counterblast, but with a concentrated spear of raw divine fury, a bolt of lightning, not gold, but the deep resonant blue of the ocean's heart, lanced from the swirling crimson clouds. It didn't crackle. It detonated across Nappa's broad back with the force of a tectonic plate shifting. Kaboom! The impact drove the hulking sand from the sky like a hammered nail. He cratered the intersection below in an eruption of asphalt and sewer steam. His gleeful roar choked into a grunt of shock. As the dust settled, Nappa pushed himself up, chunks of rubble sliding from off his armor. He wasn't hurt, the demonic energy reinforcing him saw to that, but he was profoundly annoyed and pissed off. He looked up with a snarl on his lips. A figure descended through the haze backlit by the hellish glow. It was Aquaman, and he landed with a thud that shook the street. His posture one of unwavering, regal fury. He had changed. His other arm ended not in a hand, but in a vicious, amputated piece of metal forged from Atlantean steel, and it was etched with runes of binding. In his remaining hand, his trident hummed with captured storm energy. His eyes were colder than the abyssal trench, locked onto Nappa, the memory of their last battle, the shocking pain, the spray of blood, his own severed arm spiraling away into the deep, flesh between them as tangible as the ruined city that was around them. You. Aquaman's voice was a low tide of promised violence, each word dripping with the pressure of the seven seas. You took my hand last time. He hefted the trident at points aimed at Nappa's throat. The hook on his other arm, the amputated other arm, glinted with a brutal, silent promise. So it's only fair, Aquaman declared, the air chilling around him, that this time I take off your head. Central City was a symphony of chaos. Buildings that had stood for generations were now skeletal remains, crumbling under the assault of Piccolo's hellspawn, who were blasting buildings down with mouth blasts. Through this hellscape moved a streak of crimson and gold, a blur of hope against the crimson sky that was above. The Flash was a human whirlwind of salvation. He moved not at his top speed, but at what he called rescue velocity. Fast enough to be everywhere at once, but slow enough to be gentle. He darted to a collapsing office tower, feeling the groan of stress girders through the vibrations in the air, and emerged moments later with 3 office workers cradled in his arms, depositing them safely 3 blocks away before the structure finished its death-rattled descent. Back and forth. He raced, the crimson line stitching the city back together one life at a time. Almost got everyone from the financial district, he muttered to himself, zipping up the side of a leaning skyscraper to pluck a stranded maintenance worker from a crumbling ledge. Now, for the residential quadrant. He hit the ground running, his feet a blur as he navigated through the streets choked with debris. His senses were hyper-tuned. He could hear the heartbeat of a child trapped under rubble 2 miles away. Smell of the ozone of falling electric grids frying the things below. Feel the subtle shift in air pressure that warned of another building that was about to go. That's when he felt it. Not a sound, but a vacuum, a pocket of absolute stillness within the chaos. His speedster instinct screamed, and he tried to change direction, but physics, even for him, had rules, and something thin and possibly strong and almost completely invisible snapped at ankle height, tied at ankle height across the street. The tripwire wasn't metal, it was a filament of solidified shadow-like energy, humming with the same crimson frequency as the sky. It didn't just trip him, it anchored him. The kinetic energy that should have sent him tumbling was seemingly absorbed and converted into a painful feedback jolt that ran up his own nervous system. Barry Allen tumbled head over heels, skidding across broken asphalt in a shower of sparks from his suit. He came to a stop against the husk of a burned-out car, with his vision swimming, and he pushed himself up. What the? Shaking his head to clear it. That shouldn't have worked. Nothing was supposed to be able to. Speedster, you really ought to watch your step. The voice was dry, familiar, and utterly impossible. It came from the shadows of a partially collapsed bank vault. From the darkness, a figure stepped into the hellish red light. It's Deathstroke. But not as Barry remembered him when he saw footage of him fighting the Titans. His armor was sleeker and darker, as if forged from a compressed void. The single eye lens glowed with a steady, baleful crimson. He moved with an unnerving, silent grace. No sound of boots on rubble, no rustle of armor. He simply was where he hadn't been in a moment before. leaving no trace. You, Barry breathed, scrambling to his feet. But you're dead? Atomized? Yes. Deathstroke head tilted, the lens whirring faintly as it focused. An interesting experience. I don't recommend it. But as it turns out, some equations have magical loopholes, it seems. He took a step forward, and Barry instinctively fell into a runner's crouch, vibrating his molecules at a frequency that should make him untangible. Don't bother, Deathstroke said almost conversationally. When I became an android, Jiro gave me the ability to track speedsters to a degree. After all, that's how I was planning on capturing you before the Titans defeated me and rescued the other metahumans. But now, with Trigon's power, he has further enhanced my reflexes and versatility. But we can play this game of cat and mouse if you wish. Ultimately, you will lose. The Batcave was a cathedral of shadows and silent data streams. Batman stood before the central holoscreen, its glows painting his cowl in a cold blue light. Around him, satellite feeds and seismic sensors painted a picture of global collapse. Trigon's crimson stains spreading energy signatures of resurrected foes flaring like infected wounds. His focus, however, was narrow to a specific grotesque anomaly. His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up thermal and biosignature scans, and he remembered Poison Ivy Cyberman forces years prior. The scans showed life, but it was all wrong. Dozens of small bipedal heat signatures moved with a coordinated insectoid purpose through the scorched forest. Their energy profiles were a vile splice, the familiar acidic key signatures of Ivy Cyberman, but now interwoven with the same crawling demonic frequency that emanated from Trigon and his seeming lieutenants. They're not just back, Batman muttered, his voice a gravelly whisper in the cave's stillness. He enhanced the image. The creatures were recognizable. The bulbous heads, the root-like legs, but their typical green hides were now streaked with pulsing crimson veins. Their eyes glowed with the same hellish light as the sky, and they moved faster with the predatory cunning the original plant warriors seemed to lack. They weren't just rejuvenated, they seemed to be enhanced, turned into a spreading plague of demonic flora. A strategic nightmare unfolded within his own mind. The Cybermen were weaker individually than the likes of Nappa or the revived King Piccolo, but they were numerous and acidic, and their self-destruct capability was devastating. Corrupted by Trigon's power, that explosive potential could be magnified, their spores possibly carrying the corrupted energy itself. They couldn't be allowed to swarm a population center, or worse, be used as living bombs to spread the dimensional decay. He toggled the Justice League comm, opening a direct line to Superman. The connection chimed once before Clark's voice came through, tense but focused. Batman, what is it? I'm over the Atlantic. What do you need? A new variable, Batman stated, sending the data packet. The Cybermen have returned, Clark. Trigon's influence has altered them as well. They're demonstrating even more of a pack-hunting behavior, and their energy signatures are contaminated. I'm detecting at least 40 signatures right now, and they seem to be moving northeast. Projected path intersects with a refugee caravan at about 3 hours. On the other end, Superman absorbed the information. He remembered he'd fought the Cyberman before. He knew their terrifying efficiency and willingness to die for a kill. The thought of them now powered by the same evil that was breaking Raven sent a chill through him that even his heat vision couldn't dispel. Understood. Superman's voice was still. I'll reroute. I can be there in about 90 seconds. Containment protocol. Extreme prejudice, Batman replied, his eyes on the multiplying red dots. They are no longer just biological entities, Clark. They are vectors. Do not let them detonate near civilians. Their spores may now carry some type of corrupting energy. In the meantime, I'm working on a sound frequency tower that's going to hopefully be able to incapacitate all of Piccolo's army within the city. And then the call ended. Piccolo's head snapped up, his antenna twitching violently amidst the cacophonous symphony of terror he was conducting. A single discordant note had slammed into his senses. It was a key signature, similar to his very own, yet warped. It felt like himself, but full of malice, and he was swiftly approaching it. Without a word to his spawning horde, Piccolo shot into the crimson sky, a streak of emerald and shadow. He followed the pull of gravitational tide of familial hatred until he touched down in the wasted remains of an industrial park. The ground was cracked and smoking, and in the center stood a figure that made him freeze. It was King Piccolo, his father, but not as he had been in his final moments. This was the Demon King, completely reborn, yet amplified by the same dimensional evil that empowered Trigon. His green skin was dark like poison jade, shot through with pulsing scarlet veins that glowed with internal fire. His form seemed carved from molten rock and solidified shadow, radiating an aura of such profound cosmic malice that it made the air waver around him. His eyes were burning with the intelligent contempt, and it locked onto his son. You, the junior Piccolo breathed, the word leaving him in a shocked exile. The sight triggered a flood of memories, not of affection but of purpose, of a legacy of conquest he had both inherited and in his own way transcended. King Piccolo's voice rolled out a grating avalanche of sound that held no warmth, only searing disappointment. Look at you, my creation, my successor. He took a slow, deliberate step forward, the ground sizzling beneath his feet. I bestowed upon you my essence, my will to rule this wretched world. And what have you accomplished? He gestured broadly with a clawed hand, taking in the hellish landscape. You allied with humans. You too were bested by that monkey. He spat the last word out as ultimate insult. The world remains unconquered, and our enemies breathe. And you have been diluted. You play at being a guardian, some type of champion, while a true power now reshapes the reality that is around you. Piccolo stood rigid, a maelstrom of conflict raging within. The demonic energy his father now wielded resonated with his desire for strength, singing a song of unlimited power and absolute dominion. It was tempting, a return to the simplicity of monstrous purpose. But he also felt the weight of his back, the crackle of divine lightning that was deep within his chest. The power and duty given to him by Black Adam. He was no longer just his father's reincarnation. The world has changed, old man, Piccolo finally growled, his fist clenching. And so have I. You are a relic, controlled by a negative foreign power that you cannot even comprehend. And I serve a new purpose now. King Piccolo laughed was a sound of shattering stone. Purpose. You are a servant, boy. A tool for a 10th Adam. I knew him long ago, boy. He is almost as ambitious as me. But perhaps there is still use for you. Kneel now and reclaim your birthright as my lieutenant in this coming feast that is to come, or be swept aside with the rest of these insects. The ultimatum hung in the toxic air, and Piccolo's crimson eyes narrowed, not in submission, but in cold, calculated defiance. The father-son reunion was about to be over. The battle for the soul of the Demon King's legacy and for Piccolo's own chosen path was just about to begin. Beast Boy stood amidst the trampled grasses of the savannah, the acrid smell of gunpowder and blood thick in the air. 3 poachers lay motionless around a fallen bull elephant. Its great tusks were already half sawed. Garfield Logan didn't feel the rush of victory he once did as a Titan, nor the gnawing guilt that Batman insisted he should feel. He felt a cold, grim satisfaction. This was clear. This was real justice. The world was full of rot, and sometimes you had to cut it out. Goku had been right about that, back when he'd walked away. Some threats didn't deserve a sale. They deserved an ending. He'd heard the whispers, of course, the Justice League strained calm chatter, the tabloid headlines about Luthor's rise, the ominous silence from his old friends. He'd ignored it all. The Titans were broken, Terra was gone, Robin was dead, the League's justice had felt like a hollow, hypocritical game. Out here, the calculus was simple. Protect the innocent, eliminate the scum. No meetings, no moral committees, no Batman's disapproving glare. He was a different kind of guardian now, a silent green specter of the wild, meting out a final kind of balance. As the last poacher's labored breath faded, the first change came, not from the ground, but from the very sky itself. It began as a distortion. wavering at the edge of the brilliant blue-like heat haze, but wrong. Then the color leached away, replaced by a deep bruising purple that swiftly curdled into the color of a dying heart, a pervasive bloody crimson. The very light changed, becoming sickly and oppressive, casting long twisted shadows. The animals, moments ago silent in death or fear, erupted into a chorus of primal terror. Birds shrieked from the trees, herds of antelope stampeded in mindless panic, and the insects fell silent all at once. Beast Boy looked up, his emerald eyes widening. This wasn't a storm. This was like a wound in the sky. He could feel it. A deep psychic chill seeping into the world, a wrongness that scraped against his animal-enhanced senses. It felt alive with a hungry, hateful consciousness. It was the polar opposite of the vibrant life forms that he'd been protecting. His first hard instinct was to run, to find a deep cave and burrow in as a badger and wait it out. The heroes had their shiny watchtower and their endless debates. Let them handle it. They'd failed to save Terra, failed to save Robin, failed to see that Goku was in the right for slaying Slade. Why should he throw himself into another one of their catastrophes? They seemed to always end in failure. He looked down at the dead poachers, then at the murdered elephant. This wasn't a poacher. This wasn't a trafficker. This was something that threatened the wild itself. The creeping crimson miasma seemed to poison the very air the animals breathed. The terror he felt from the stampeding herds wasn't just fear or noise. It was a soul-deep recognition of extinction. A low growl rumbled in his throat. Unbidden, he thought of the Titans, specifically of Raven. Her power always had this dark-like feeling to it. A chill. This felt kind of like that, but magnified to a whole nother world-breaking scale. The air over the savannah had a metallic wrongness to it that now stained the sky. Beast Boy stood amidst the carnage, the crimson light painting his green skin a sickly brown. The primal terror of the animals was a physical scream in his senses, worse than any poacher's gunshot. This was definitely world-ending, the kind he couldn't stop alone. A sonic crack not from the sky, but from the right beside him shattered his grim thoughts. Beast Boy didn't startle. He turned his head, a slow, deliberate motion. As the dust settled, standing there in his classic orange gi was Goku. He looked older. There were lines of stress around his eyes that hadn't been there during their Titan days, and a grim set to his jaw that spoke of a fight that he had already lost once before. Garfield, Goku said. No. No Beast Boy. No long time see. Just the name. It was jarringly direct. A smirk, thin and devoid of real humor, spread across Beast Boy's face. He crossed his arms, leaning back against the dead elephant's massive side. Well, well. Look what this hell on earth dragged in. Been a minute, Goku. Or what, a couple years? Time flies when you're not saving the world and just tidying it up a little. He gestured vaguely at the dead poachers. Goku's eyes didn't waver. Yeah, it's been a while. I knew where you were the whole time. Beast Boy's smirk faltered for a microsecond. What? Like with the Justice League satellite? Batman finally put a tracer on me, huh? No. Goku shook his head, his expression earnest. I can feel you, your energy. Its power shifts a lot, and it feels like primal but sad. And really angry. He said it like stating a fact about the weather. I felt you move around the planet. I just figured you'd want to be left alone. After everything that's happened. So I left you alone. The simple blunt truth of it hit Beast Boy harder than any accusation. Goku hadn't hunted him, hadn't tried to drag him back. He'd just known. And respected his choice. A flicker of the old easy camaraderie sparked within him. But then it was smothered by the newer, colder cynicism. Right. The sensory hack. I forgot you could do that. So, he uncrossed his arms, his green eyes narrowing. You're here. Which means whatever the hell this is, he jabbed a thumb at the bleeding sky, is way past bad territory. Past league pay grade. Past everyone's pay grade. So bad that you're digging up old retired titans who've gone feral. The crimson light stained the savannah, painting the world in shades of a wound. Beast Boy had already turned, a dismissive gesture hanging in the toxic air. Yeah, well, have fun with the apocalypse. I've got my own corner of hell to take care of, and I'm fine to do that. He took a single step, his posture rigid with the resolve of a man who had buried his entire old life away. It's Raven. Goku's voice stopped him cold. It wasn't loud, it was pleading. It was just a fact. It wasn't loud, it wasn't pleading, it was just a fact. Heavy and final dropped into the space that was between them. Beast Boy froze mid-step. The cynical mask carefully constructed over these years of solitude and bitterness didn't just crack, it shattered. Every muscle in his back tensed. He didn't turn around, but his head tilted slightly, the line of his shoulders shifting from dismissal to a predator's alertness. What did you say? The thing causing all this, Goku continued, his voice low and grave. It's called Trigon. He's a demon, and he's using Raven. He's a demon, I think, and he's using Raven. Her pain or her power, it's like the key he's using to break our world open. She's trapped, Garfield. She's fighting him from the inside, but I know she's losing. A low, inhuman growl vibrated in Beast Boy's chest. A sound that had more in common with the panicked wildlife than with a man. He slowly turned back around. The smirk was gone, erased as if it had never been. In its place was a raw, naked fury that made his emerald eyes seem to glow in the hellish light. Using her, he repeated. The words a guttural scrape. The images flashed unbidden. Raven in the Titan's common room with a rare small smile as she sipped tea. Raven using her power to shield them all from damage. Her face a mask of strained control. Raven quiet and constant, a pillar of their strange family that once was. He looked down at his own hands, still faintly smudged with the blood of the poacher's camp. The cold satisfaction he'd felt moments ago curdled into a sickening shame. He'd been out here playing judge and executioner, telling himself that he was making a difference while his real family, well, what was left of it, was being tortured and used to end existence, as it seems. He spoke. When Robin died, Beast Boy said, his voice trembling now, not with fear, but with a rage so deep it was icy. When Cyborg got put in that coma, I wasn't there. I told myself it was because the hero gig was broken, that I was done with the rules. He finally met Goku's eyes, his own gleaming with unshed tears of undiluted anger. But I wasn't there because I was selfish, and I was hurt, and I could have helped my friends. He took a step toward Goku, his form subtly shifting. This isn't about saving the world, Goku. Screw the world. Alright, the world didn't help Terra when she was growing up. And the world got Robin killed. And Cyborg got put in a coma for a world that won't even remember his sacrifice. He jabbed a finger toward the epicenter of the Crimson Storm. But that thing, in there, it has Raven. And Raven, she was always there, man. Even when she was brooding in the corner, she was there. She's our friend. He solidified his stance. The last vestige of his cynical loner burning away in the furnace of his loyalty. So, you tell me what we need to do. I'm not signing back up for the Justice League and I'm not turning hero again. But we are getting our friend back. And I'm making whatever is hurting her wish it had stayed in whatever hell it crawled out of. The feral guardian of the savannah was gone. In its place stood an avatar of vengeance, ready to tear through dimensions for the sake of one quiet, powerful girl who had never given up on him, even when he'd given up on himself. I'm in. All the way. And that's going to be this episode, man. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Once again, let me know what y'all think of that picture, man. It's crazy. And y'all know, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below, hype up the video, man. Become a member, all that. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.